Even when you had two eyes, you'd see only half the picture.
Okay, don't think. Nobody think. No ideas. No theories. No nothing.
Welcome to Truth and Shadow, your guide through the supernatural. I am your host, BT, and this is a Shadow Short. Let's navigate the unknown on this brief journey into the depths of mystery. There's something ancient in us, something older than logic, older than the stories we're told in Sunday school or psychology class, something that watches in the stillness, something that whispers when we're alone. It doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols, in dreams, in reoccurring images, in the slow crawl of meaning that unfolds when we finally stop distracting ourselves. You've seen it before, in the flicker of firelight, in the eyes of an old animal, in that dream you never told anyone about, the one where someone you loved wore the wrong face. You woke up and something in you knows that wasn't just a dream. Today, we think we've moved beyond myth. Well, we haven't. We've merely forgotten how to see it. Because the truth is, myths never died. They just slipped beneath the surface and became our unconscious mind. And when we stopped telling stories, they didn't vanish. They started telling us. This episode is not a history lesson. It's not about Viking gods or ancient Scandinavia. It's about you. Because while the Norse gods may exist in myth, and perhaps the Norse gods are not dead, I believe they are alive in the structure of the psyche. Odin, for example, is not just a figure in a saga. He's an archetype, the wandering seeker, the wounded self, the part of you that is willing to give up everything to just understand anything. And we don't follow Odin because we want power. We follow him because we want to see. And seeing, true seeing, comes with a price. One eye. The ego resists this. It clings to what it knows, to surface level certainties, to narratives that soothe rather than disturb. But the soul doesn't want to be comforted. The soul wants to be transformed. This is a descent, not a lecture. It's a mythic journey into the self, if you will. We're going to go through the woods of shadow, across the roots of the world tree, and maybe past the edge of things where the runes are carved and the wolves wait in silence. We're going to talk about Odin, but what we're really talking about is the moment you start to wake up, the moment you trade your outer sight for inner vision, the moment you stop asking what's true and start asking what's real. That's what this episode is about. It's about a mirror, sacrifice, and the terrible wisdom that waits beneath the surface of your mind. So if you're looking for a cozy tale about Norse heroes and northern skies, this is not it. But if you've ever felt the pull of something older, if you've ever stared into the dark and sensed it staring back, if you've ever wondered why your own thoughts sometimes feel like echoes from another world, well, then pour yourself something strong. Have a seat. Breathe deep and listen close, because Odin didn't give up his eye to see the world, he gave it to see himself. And the moment you're ready to do the same, Well, that's when the world begins. They say he gave his eye for wisdom. But you've got to wonder, what did he see when it was gone? That's how it begins. The old story stirs to life, a whisper beneath the wind, a raven's cry in the distance. A god, one-eyed, wandering, standing at the edge of the world. Not to conquer it, but to understand it. Not to see with eyes, but with vision. This is not just a tale of gods and monsters, not just a tale of thunder and axes and ale-soaked halls. This is the oldest kind of story, the kind you already know, because it lives inside you. We all have a piece of Odin in us, the part that knows the price of seeing too much, the part that's willing to bleed for meaning, the part that suspects the world is built on something deeper than what's printed in textbooks, or whispered in pews, that maybe, just maybe, truth doesn't come from answers, but from sacrifice. This story is old, older than the sagas, older than the ink that tried to pin it down. It's carved in the soul of the North, into stone, into storm, into the human psyche. And like all great myths, it isn't here to entertain. It's here to confront. We're going to begin with Odin, but not with the Odin of the Marvel movies, not the fatherly patriarch on a throne, not even the roaring god of victory and spears. No, we're going to begin with the other Odin, the wounded one, the one who walks the edge of madness, whispering to himself beneath the stars. He is the seeker, the wanderer, the one who sacrifices not for conquest, but for wisdom. And when he comes to Mimir's well, the waters don't lie. This isn't a well like you imagine. It's not quaint. It's not a fairy tale. This is the very abyss of deep meaning. It's a mirror of the self that reflects not your face, but everything you hide from yourself. And Odin, he stares. He knows the price. He plucked it out himself. No hesitation, no flinch, because he understands something that most of us spend a lifetime avoiding. To see clearly, you must lose something of yourself. Carl Jung might have called that the first step toward individuation. The shattering of the illusion that you are whole just because you're awake. Jung understood the mystical, the mythical. He knew the gods were not, quote-unquote, out there. They were inside us, archetypes, symbols, living presences in the deep, unconscious mind. Therefore, they're not fictions, but they're realer than real. In a way, dreams are real. The kind of real that you can ruin if you ignore it. And so Odin, he is the archetype of the self-seeking self. The ego that realizes it is not the master, the psyche that turns inward and finds monsters inside, and of course, meaning. Odin gives his eye for wisdom, and what does he see? Well, he sees the runes. They're not letters, not spells, but they're symbols. Symbols that, well, they speak, not to the mind, but to the very soul. This is what Jung meant when he said, the symbol is the best possible expression for something unknown. And that means, for example, these runes, they don't give the answers, they open up some doorways. They're fragments of dream, tools of transformation, and Odin learns from them, not from a study, but from a suffering. He hangs himself from the world tree, from Yggdrasil, Not for a few hours, not for a night, but for 9 days and nights he hangs, pierced, alone, starving, dying. A god dying to become more than a god? I mean, doesn't that sound familiar? Myths echo myth: the cross, the tree, the spear, the wound, the descent, the resurrection. But you see, unlike Christ, Odin does not die for the world. In this story, he dies for the self, for knowledge, for runes, for that primordial language etched into the bones of existence. And that's where we start to turn the mirror back to you, because here's the thing. Everybody wants wisdom. No one wants to give up an eye to see it. Maybe there's something in you that's afraid to look. Maybe it's your shame. Maybe it's your memory. Maybe it's something you haven't identified yet. Some part of you that snarls and paces in the dark. Jung called that the shadow, the part of the psyche that the ego has repressed. Not because it's evil, but because it's uncomfortable to live with. Now, you might think you've buried it, but it's not dead. Nothing in the unconscious ever is. It just slips behind the curtain until one day it just comes out. And then what? Well, do you see rage like Thor? Do you run like Loki? Or do you turn like Odin toward the pain? There's no glory in that moment, no lightning, no applause. It's just you in silence in the long, slow hanging on the tree of your own soul. But if you stay, if you let the old part of you die, you just might be able to hear those symbols come to life. And when Odin learned from the runes, he did not hoard them, he shared them. But only with those who had ears to hear. That's always the way it is with truth. It isn't democratic, it's dangerous. And it demands everything from you. So now let me ask, what are you willing to give up in order to see? Would you trade comfort for clarity? Would you give up certainty for mystery? Would you stare into a mirror that shows you everything you've tried to forget? That's what Mimir's well really is. It's not just some well in the woods. It's you. And when you peer into it, the waters ripple and the symbols start to reveal themselves. But we're just getting started with this episode. In the next part, we're going to descend into the world tree, into hell, the realm of the dead. We're not going there to fear it, but kind of to understand what's going on. We're going to look at Fenrir, Loki, and hell herself as Jungian shadows, as necessary forces the psyche must confront. Because, you see, the gods didn't bind the wolf Fenrir because he was evil. They bound him because they were afraid. And that fear still lives inside us. The gods, in all their wisdom, chained up Fenrir. And they feared the wolf not because he was evil, but because he could not be controlled. Not that he was devouring the world, but because he might. He was just a pup then, not yet monstrous, not even a threat, but they saw something in him they did not understand, something wild, something unruled. And that is always the danger. Not what's destructive, but that thing that refuses to be domesticated. So they tricked him. They played at peace while creating lies, and when it came time to bind them, they asked him to trust them. They even laughed as they did it. But Fenrir knew. And when the final chain, made of things that do not exist, the breath of a fish, the roots of a mountain, the sound of a cat's footfall, it held them fast. He snapped at the hand of the god who fed him. Tyr, the god of oaths and honors, placed his hand in Fenrir's mouth to show good faith, and he lost it. And that is how the unconscious mind works. You feed it, you fear it, you betray it, and it bites. Jung called this the return of the repressed. What we exile does not go quietly. It grows in silence and shadow, and it waits. Fenrir is not just a wolf. He is the shadow made manifest. He is the part of you that society said no to. The primal part, the raw part, the part that doesn't care what's expected, only what is true. And he is your rage, your hunger, your grief that never found a voice, and he's still there in chains. And we do this all the time. We chain what we can't control, we mock what we don't understand, and we sedate what we don't want to feel. But here's the truth. Fenrir is part of the cosmos. He has a role to play. And when Ragnarok comes, he breaks free, not because he's evil, but because everything denied must return. Let's put a pin in that and talk about Loki for a moment. If Odin is the truth seeker, Loki therefore is the trickster, the shapeshifter, the boundary breaker. He's the one who reminds the gods that they are not actually in control. So he is irrational, he is disruptive, and he is the part of you that won't sit quietly and pretend to agree. Jung would call Loki the psychic dynamite placed beneath the floorboards of the ego, and the force that makes the journey unpredictable. It's that which exposes illusion by turning it upside down. People say Loki causes chaos, but the truth is, he reveals that chaos was already there. You just weren't looking. And then there's Hel, the goddess of the dead, the daughter of Loki, half beautiful, half decayed, banished from the world above, left to rule the silent, cold realm beneath the roots of Yggdrasil. Well, we don't like her. Well, we don't like her because she's too honest. She doesn't wear a mask. She doesn't smile to reassure you. She's cold. She's death. She's beauty, all in one face. Hell is what we fear most. The acceptance of what we cannot change. Not in the poetic sense, but the aching, quiet way that whispers, this is what it is, let go. So let's just kind of gather them together. Fenrir, the shadow, chained; Loki, the trickster, disruptive truth; and Hel, the inescapable and the necessary of integration. These aren't villains, they're parts of the soul, and they're waiting not in some far-off myth, but inside of you. Because Odin's journey was a descent into himself, then yours must be too. You don't find truth by climbing a tree. You find it by going down into the dark, the roots, into the parts of you you swore you would never speak of, into that grief you swallowed. Down into the dark, into the roots, into the parts you swore you would never speak of, into that grief you've swallowed, into the betrayal you still bleed from, into the howl that has never left your throat. The gods tried to bind the chaos beneath the world, but it never does stay bound. Neither will yours. The world tree, Yggdrasil, is not a metaphor, it's a map of the soul. Its roots drink from 3 wells. Its branches stretch across 9 realms. It connects everything, above, below, within. To climb is not to ascend, it is to become whole, to see every realm, even the ones you hate, even the ones that hurt. Because that's what integration is. It's not purification, it's not perfection, but wholeness. You are not here to slay the wolf, you're here to know him. You're not here to outwit the trickster, you're here to listen. You are not here to escape death. You're here to look in her eyes and say, yes. And that's a hard truth. Most people don't want transformation, integration. They want sedation, reassurances that they are fine as they are. Truth is, the soul does not grow in comfort. It grows when the gods lose their grip, when the chains break, when Hel speaks, when Loki laughs, when the wolf runs free. The question is not whether you believe the myth. The question is, are you brave enough to live it? They say that the world will burn. But what if that's the beginning and not the end? And many of them feared it, even the gods. It's the end of all things. The twilight of the Aesir, the breaking of bonds, the roaring of the great wolf, the ship of nails, sailing from hell's realm. It's Ragnarok. But there's something they never told you. Well, it isn't an ending, it's a pattern, it's a cycle, and honestly, it's a necessity. Because the world can't begin again until the old gods fall. Jung would say that this is a collapse of the ego. The moment the structures you've built, the beliefs, the images, the projections, they all begin to crumble. Not because they were wrong, but because they were incomplete. And so this is the necessary breakdown. This is the night of the soul where even the gods must die. It's the death of the known. The psyche can only evolve when its current form is no longer enough, and that's Ragnarok. It's not merely some mythic doomsday. It's the symbolic implosion of who you thought you were. That's terrifying. Because for most people, identity is safety. Routines are rituals. Beliefs are shields. But when the storm comes, when Fenrir breaks his chains, when the trickster no longer plays games but declares war, when fire consumes the sky, you are faced with the raw truth that you are not in control. You never were. So the gods will fall, one by one. Odin dies at the jaws of the wolf. Thor slays the world serpent but drowns in its poison. The sky cracks. The fire giants pour forth. The bridge burns. The mind, your mind, can't hold it anymore. And this is what it feels like to awaken. Not gentle, not soothing, apocalyptic. You start to question everything. Why do you do what you do? Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you keep living a life that doesn't feel alive? You realize the narratives you inherited were never yours. You realize your mask is cracking, and underneath it, there's something wild and ancient and real. And in that chaos, you wonder what survives. Well, that's the secret. Ragnarok isn't the end. It's a fire that purifies. It's not there to just destroy. It's going to reveal. It's going to burn away the illusion and free the bound. And when it's done, when the ashes have settled and the echoes of the old gods fade, something new rises. And in the sagas, that's Baldur, the god of light, the god who was dead but now returns. In Jungian terms, Baldur is the emergent self. He's the wholeness that comes after the fragmentation, the soul reborn. Not in denial of its past, but fully in integration of it. He is what comes after shadow work, after the descent, after the confrontation with the unconscious, with death, with the truth. He is clarity, not the eye Odin lost, but the vision that came from losing it. So what does this mean to you, right? It means your breakdown wasn't meaningless. It means that your pain was a pattern, that the parts of you that fell apart weren't failures, they were sacrifices. And maybe you were never meant to stay who you were. Maybe the gods in your head had to die for truth to live. And that's why we honor the old stories. They're not to escape life, but to understand it. Myth is not a lie, it's a mirror, and it shows us what's underneath the surface. And the Norse knew, perhaps better than most, that the end never was the end. It's a fire, and if you walk through it, if you don't run, if you don't flinch, you're going to emerge not as you were, but as what you were meant to become. And that means to walk the path after fire is to walk as something new. You are still you, but you are not the same. The fire burns out, the gods are dead, the wolf is gone, the serpent slain, the sky is silent, and there you stand. No applause, no revelation, just silence. Just the sound of ash settling into the soil of the soul. You're still here. A wound that shines, a scar that speaks, the kind of knowing that costs too much to explain. You can't go back to who you were. That mask doesn't fit anymore. The lies feel like splinters in your mouth. Well, you've seen something real, and once you've seen it, you don't unsee it. And this is the aftermath, the part no one warned you about, because, well, it's not dramatic, it's not cinematic, it's quiet, it's slow. The myth is behind you. Now comes the life, and here Odin waits again, not on a throne, not in a storm, but at the edge of a forest trail. He is older, calmer, still missing an eye, but wiser than before. Because now you understand what it meant. He didn't give it up for wisdom. He gave it up for vision. Not to know more, but to see more deeply, more truly beyond the surface, beyond appearances. To see truth. That's what the runes are for. Not for spells, not for weaponry, for truth. They were symbols that mean nothing until they awaken you, until your path teaches you to read them, until your descent gives you the language of the soul. So what now? What does it mean to live like Odin? It means you walk with a limp in the soul, but you walk forward. It means you see with depth, not speed. You pause, you listen to things most people don't hear anymore. You become mythically attuned. This is not superstition. This is not delusion, but you're alive in meaning, alive to symbol, and alive to the sacred thread that weaves through every moment. And if you know how to look sideways, there's a cost to this. Most people, they won't understand you. You'll talk in metaphors and dream logic. You'll see significance where others see coincidence. You'll walk away from conversations that feel like noise. Because you know what silence can teach you. You'll lose things. Comfort, ease, simplicity. But you'll gain something more. You'll begin to carry a kind of inner sovereignty. The ground isn't gold, it's made of silence, it's made of shadow. It's made of the thread you pulled from the world's edge when you were hanging from your own Yggdrasil. And it fits. I mean, not perfectly, but it does honestly fit. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that's what Odin did. And that's what you're doing now. You're not arriving at some place, you are becoming. And you will become again and again. Because the journey doesn't end at the fire, it starts there. Integration is not a moment, it's a rhythm. And now you walk it. Runes etched into your memory, if you will. Shadows behind you, light in your chest. And you become a bearer of a myth in a disenchanted world. Not to escape it, but honestly, to redeem it. To whisper stories that awaken something deep in others. To notice the symbols that others forget to see. And you're going to speak of gods, not as sky dwellers, but as soul echoes. They're alive, awake, waiting. So this is the invitation. This is the invitation to live mythically, to walk as a seeker, to look with one eye so that the other can turn inward. It's the invitation to face the wolf, to listen to the trickster, to stand in the fire and become something new. This is the invitation to die, not once but often, not in the body but in ego, in the illusion, in the shadow things we cling to before we know who we are. Because when all that falls away, all of that's gone, what remains is true, good, and beautiful. And if somewhere in the stillness of your own night, you hear the runes whisper, answer. You don't need to know what they mean. Just listen. That's how Odin began, and it's how you'll begin too. Not with all the answers. You'll begin with the courage to ask the first question. So maybe tonight, when the world quiets down and there's nothing left but your breath in the dark, you'll feel it. That old myth moving through you again. The whisper of the tree, the weight of the runes, the shape of the path beneath your feet. You don't need to rush. Just walk. One step, one breath, one truth at a time. Because this world still needs people who remember the old stories, and one who dare to live as if they still matter. Until next time, this is BT with Truth and Shadow Podcast, reminding you to keep listening to the shadow.